Welcome to the Entelechea satsang. Once again, tonight we're going to start a little bit differently. We're going to have some music to begin. So I'd like you all to put your feet flat on the floor, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and just listen to the words of this song and allow yourself to center.
Melting into presence, overflowing effervescence, rising in love. Dawn is breaking, waves are coming in, and everybody here standing in wonder beneath the rain and the thunder, rising in love.
Allow yourself to come back to the room now and let your eyes open as you're ready. We are awakening.
And that's part of a song by
Deva Premal and
Yeah.
Mitten.
and Mitten.
I like that song, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
so
a new
not,
release by them.
Yeah, not the whole song, but that's a good
Yes.
chunk of it.
Oh.
To start with, I'm Dr. Tricia Seymour,
drrusutybarrier.
and today we're going to talk about waking up and what that means.
There are a lot of parts to that, aren't there, Tricia?
Yeah, a lot of people think that just because they realize something's beyond the third dimension, you know, the physical, that they're awake. And the truth is, that's like just the first step on the path. That there's a lot more involved in really connecting to source and connecting to oneness. And in our previous talks, we talked a little bit about our stories.
We did, about how we had connected to oneness, how that feels, how it affects your life. And basically what it does is once you realize that everything here is Maya, everything you see, you hear, you taste, you touch, if it has anything to do with your five senses, it is part and parcel of Maya, of illusion. It is not real. Now, that leads into what I'm really wanting to talk about tonight, which is the dream world. Did you want me to read that quote?
It's a quote from A Course in Miracles, and it fits for what we're talking about tonight. And it says, "I am not my body. I am free, For I am still as God created me. So think about that. We identify completely with who I am. Matter of fact, people here want you to identify with who you are. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a worker, I'm this career, this education, that education, this income, that income. The world wants us to identify with our body and our persona, when really it's what we're using as we play the game.
Mm-hmm. It's just our avatar. But think about when you've been around a family who has a small, newborn. What's the first thing they start doing? They're calling it by name. They're giving its body a name. Well, the child automatically begins to recognize with the brain, which again is here in Maya, that, oh, I'm Rusty. When they say that word, they're talking to me. That must be me. So we begin this body identification, this label identification, almost instantly after birth. So that becomes one of the first things we have to unlearn here. Right? And that's a big part of awakening is unlearning what you've been taught. Right?
It's the same with gender.
Yes.
It's a boy, it's a girl. Mm-hmm. It's been interesting to watch from a psychological point of view as all that has evolved and now into non-binary and all the various sundry things that people want to use to identify themselves. It's interesting to see that some of the younger generations may be actually breaking out of that duality of male-female, good, bad, right, wrong. There's at least some piece of them that recognizes I am not my body.
Right. And one of the things, as you begin the awakening process, and as Tricia alluded to a few minutes ago, there are many steps to the process. The first awakening is recognizing perhaps, there has to be more to life than I'm being told. And when we get to adulthood, that translates into, I really don't think I came down here to work at a job, pay bills, go home, go to bed, go to sleep, go to work, pay bills, go home. That's right? And all of us feel that way. But that's a breadcrumb, folks. The reason we feel that dissatisfaction is our own soul, the who we are, beyond labels, beyond form, is going, hello, here I am, come find me. And that's really what it is. There is a practice in Hinduism called neti neti. It's probably a different name for it, that's my name for it. And neti neti means not this, not this, not this. So A Course in Miracles has a very similar, of course, as we've said before, A Course in Miracles is really just the Americanized version of Advaita Vedanta. They just Christianized it so they could get by with it here. And they still got in trouble, didn't they? But you look around you, and in theirs it says, everything I see has no meaning. Right? And this is the same thing. If I look at a body over here, but I don't see the body, I only see the being that's moving through that body, that's expressing through that body, then I'm seeing who that person is. I see who you are over here, and each of you. Right? Neti neti is a practice yourself of looking around and going, not me, not me, not me, not me. Well, who am I? And I'm going to say this very clearly, the only valid question to actually ever really ask on this planet is, who am I? Because that's the only one that will help you wake up. If you ask, do I like chocolate or vanilla? Well, now you're back in Maya. You're back in the illusion out here. You're making choices. You're looking at labels. Let them go.
The who am I needs to be beyond what we're taught.
Yes.
Because again, as I said earlier, what we're taught is, who am I? I'm a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, whatever. That we're looking at beyond that to who you actually are. Who is it that is the core? One of the things that I find interesting, and the reason he started with the dream world, is because that's what this is. It's a dream world. And if you realize that, if you were having a really, really good dream, I mean, you're loving the dream, it's beautiful, you're flying, the colors are bright, do you want to wake up? No.
You're
You don't
happy
wanna
in the
wake up.
dream, aren't you?
Right. Now, if the dream is a nightmare and you're being chased and you think you might die or you might fall off a cliff or you're embarrassed, you know, you're running around naked or whatever, if the dream is really bad, you want to
You're ready to wake up.
So, our lives, if your life was great and wonderful and you never had a problem at all, you may not want to ever wake up. But when struggles and strife and issues happen, it makes you kind of go inside and go, there has to be more. There has to be something other than this, whatever you want to call it. Some people have a lot of trauma in their past. There has to be something other than this, right? And so I see those things as, you remember the Hansel and Gretel thing where they put breadcrumbs on the ground and they followed them to get back to safety? Back home, I see all these things as breadcrumbs for us to get home. Ways for that source, all that is, the essence of all that is, gave us to remember this is part of the illusion. This is not actually who I am. Go ahead.
By the way, if I remember that story correctly, one of them put the breadcrumbs out and the other one came along and picked them up. And that's kind of what we do to ourselves, unfortunately. Our soul is leaving breadcrumbs all the way home. Our ego goes, to hide them from us. Our ego does not want us to find the way home. All right? Our ego wants us to stay here in the illusion because that is where it exists. It is where that part of us thrives. As a matter of fact, we could not be in duality if it were not for our ego.
Right. So egos aren't bad.
No.
It's just acknowledging what part is ego and what part is spirit inside yourself. What part of you are there. The ego is kind of like the key to enter the game. Without an ego, you wouldn't be here. So it's very difficult to be here. Not going to say nobody ever has, but it's difficult to be in the game and in the illusion and see the illusion and live in the illusion and not have an ego.
Well, my experience has been that when I dissolve into oneness, there is no me, there is no ego. The ego is actually what allows us to experience separation, right? But it's not who you are. It's that non-being, that oneness, that union with all of life, and with life itself is who we actually are.
So I'm sure each of you have your own stories. And they are stories of times where you had a great synchronicity, where all of a sudden everything just lined up perfectly for you. You didn't expect it at all, and there it is. Or somebody just made some comment or did some nice thing, and you just went, wow, that's mind-blowing. You know, where you went beyond what you thought you could do and who you thought you were. And I know in our book we talk about a bunch of different times
Stories.
when you move beyond, and we keep using the analogy of the game,
Right.
like a video game, or even a board game, or Chutes and Ladders. But the point is that as you move up the spiral of the game, as you move up the levels of the game, you get different breadcrumbs. You get different things that come along and go, oop, there's more. Oop, this isn't just it. Wow, there is somebody else. There's something else playing out. There's a bigger picture you don't see.
There's lots of little synchronicities that happen along the way. One of them that I'm remembering was years ago. Tricia and I were at a little hole-in-the-wall Thai restaurant down in Oak Lawn. And we're sitting there enjoying our pad Thai, and all of a sudden, this child, little Asian child, probably Korean since it was, that's who it was, or Thai rather, comes running up to our table. We don't know who he is, anything. He looks at us both, he goes, first you're little, then you're big, then you're little again, and off he goes. And we just started laughing. Buddha came to say, remember, you're little, you're big, you're little. We all go round and round. And we have many, many stories like that. Those are the breadcrumbs in our lives. Those things happen to each and every one of us. Sometimes a breadcrumb to remind you that you're more than who you think you are is a very happy puppy when you come home. And just wag it. By the way, if you ever want to know how the universe really feels about you, say hello to a dog. They always love you. They don't care what you look like, what kind of a day you've had. They love you, right? And that's how the universe, that's how oneness, that's how Brahma feels about each of us, because we are it. Nettie, nettie, I am not this. We are, however, Brahma. As Brahma, we welcome all experience.
So another type of breadcrumb can happen again in those kind of synchronicities. And I remember I was at a point in my life where I was kind of waking up, I would say early stages of waking up and starting to listen and hearing things like guidance of where to go and what to do, to the point that I heard, you know, get in your car, take a left, take a right, take a left, go in there. And it was happening on a regular basis. And so I had the free time, I could do it. So I literally would get in my car and just listen where to go. And then I knew that when I got there, somebody was going to happen, somebody I was going to meet, something was going to happen, or something I just needed to be present for. And we've talked a little bit about being present, but this is really important, where you are fully there in the experience. So you're not going into Starbucks just to get a cup of coffee and you never see another person that's around you. You walk in, you see everybody that's there, you're fully present in the experience. You're talking to the person behind the counter, you're being friendly, you're present to them and what they're saying and what they're doing. And the barista, you're present to what's happening. And the more you can do that, the more you'll notice these synchronicities. So I had been heard guidance to go into a coffee shop, and I went in a coffee shop and there was a family who was on bicycles, mom, dad, and a little girl with ringlets, and we all went in about the same time. They were on bikes, they got off their bikes, we all went in the coffee shop at the same time. And I ordered my coffee, and I'm being present and trying to see who it is I'm going to meet and what I'm going to hear and the synchronicities. And I get my coffee and I sit down, and the little girl runs over to me and she said, do you like that movie? You know, the one about the pig. And I'm like, the pig? I don't remember. I don't have a kid. What are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, that's a great movie. What was the name of that movie? And she looked at me and she said, what do you mean, what's the name of that movie? You just said it to me, like I said it. And I'm like, I didn't say what the name of that movie was. Now, I knew the name and I had thought it in my head, but I never said it out loud. And I looked at her and I said, no, tell me, what's the name of that movie? And she started to get mad. You just told me the name of the movie. I said, well, what was it? She said, you just said Babe. And I said, I did not say Babe, honey. I did. And she was getting mad and just like about ready to have a little temper tantrum. Like, okay, yeah, I said it. Then I took a deep breath, and she ran back to her parents, and I took a deep breath and sat there, and I went, isn't that interesting? So if we're fully present, and we're fully present with other people, maybe we can even understand thoughts. Maybe we can hear thoughts from somebody else. She heard my thoughts. They did not come out of my mouth. She was still so innocent and still in touch still, that she heard my thoughts. And I thought, wow. Here I am thinking I'm just going to go get a cup of coffee, and I've had like this mind-blowing experience going, well, now that was pretty cool. But I was present and ready to have an experience.
But that's also one of the symptoms of waking up, isn't it? Is that we begin to connect with others on a very different level than a physical, a mental, emotional level.
And you'll notice these particular instances that we're telling you about stick out because they're related to children. And children are often still very, especially little ones, they're still often very connected to source. They remember, right? And then we wake up and we get into the social hypnosis and we forget. But as children, they often are still very open and hear and they remember.
Actually, we were sitting to school and we're taught not to remember. But this, it is, children come in. We haven't forgotten when we're here. One of my greatest gifts was I was never asked to forget when I was a child. And as we shared in a previous video, my first memory of drifting into oneness, dissolving into oneness, I was about 7 or 8 years old in my grandparents' yard, just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. Didn't fall down. And suddenly everything felt beautiful and peaceful, and suddenly I was no longer, there was nothing. I was in nothingness. And it's a wonderful place for me to go into, for lack of a better word, samadhi.
And you had Jerry tell you a story.
I had Jerry, my friend Dr. Gerald Jampolsky, told a story about a couple that actually came to his center in San Rafael, California. And this couple was a young couple, and they had a 3-year-old son and a newborn baby. And you know, parents get nervous about their children, and they were concerned a little about sibling rivalry and all that stuff. And the little boy came, I want to be alone with the baby. Mom, Dad, let me be alone with the baby. And they're going, Then they'll, oh yeah, we have a baby monitor. We can listen in while he's in there. She said, sure, you can go in and greet the baby. So the little boy goes running in, and he closes the door. Mom and Dad are going, He walks over to the crib. And what they hear him say is, baby, baby, tell me who God is. I'm already beginning to forget. Feel that. Baby, baby, tell me who God is. I'm already beginning to forget. 3 years old. As we awaken, as we remember that there is more to life than this, than anything out here, we begin to remember. Neil Donald Walsh, in his book Conversations with God, actually was the first one I heard that broke it down into, you are remembering, you are putting yourself back together. And we do that by cutting away the parts that are not us. Netty, netty, not this, not this. Who am I? Where do I exist? Now, this is a wonderful journey, folks, because it means you get to look at all the stuff you've dealt with in this lifetime, and all the things you deal with in past lifetimes. But once, and I'm going to say this, and I've said it before many times, every sage out there who has ever come to talk to us has simply said, the minute you remember who you are, all karma, all suffering fades at that moment. You will still be in a human body. You will still have things like pain and anxiety and the emotions that come with the chemistry of this avatar, this creature that is your friend on this planet that lets you focus here. Anything else you want to add to that? No, okay.
I was going to say something totally different, so go ahead.
Go for it. No, I'm done.
So each of these experiences that we've had, and I'm sure if you think back in your life you've had them too, are the breadcrumbs. They're the breadcrumbs to remind you that we're all connected. They're the breadcrumbs to remind you that we are more than just this physical form. We're breadcrumbs to remind you that it's good to see it as a game, as something to play, as something to enjoy. Another, again, child experience that I had was back in the day where they used to let you go all the way to the gate when you were meeting someone or sending someone off or whatever.
At the airport.
At the airport? Yeah, sorry, at the airport. And I went all the way to the gate to send off someone. And there was a mother and child in front of me waving goodbye to what I looked like grandma. And that child was crying and crying and crying and screaming and crying and could not understand why Grandma was leaving and why the child couldn't go. And just screaming and crying. And I remembered the child that talked to my head in the coffee shop. So I took a deep breath, and I went into my heart and got centered, and I spoke in my head to the child. And I just let the child know that it is safe, it is loved, it is okay. And I felt that emotion of being safe. I felt that emotion of being connected to Source. I felt the emotion of unconditional love. And I just felt myself saying those words in my head and sending that energy to the child. The child stopped crying instantly, turned around and looked right at me over the mother's shoulder and just started laughing. And the mother turned around and looked at me and said, "What did you do?"
Yeah.
My child's been crying for I don't know how long because Grandma just got on the plane and they wanted to go with them. I couldn't, they were rocking them and I couldn't get them to stop. And now the child's laughing and looking at me. Now I don't think I have any great abilities. I just think I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't. So now, every time I'm on an airplane and I hear a screaming child, if I can get centered and get to my heart and feel the love of Source and unconditional love and safety and say those words and aim it towards where I hear that screaming coming from, inevitably they quiet down. They quiet down because we're all connected.
We're all connected.
We're all the same. We're all still in the ocean of unconditional love. We just forget. And these breadcrumbs, your synchronicities, these experiences are ways to remind you that 1, you're not alone.
Right.
2, I'm not my body. 3, this is a dream. Let's make it a beautiful dream and start waking up rather than a nightmare or a 2x4 that has to force us to wake up, right? Let's start remembering. Notice the breadcrumbs along the way.
Yes, trust me on this. You want to wake up to the easy parts. You want to wake
You want
up
that easy
when
button.
the universe taps you on the head with a feather, not a railroad tie. And that is, we've talked about children, and it is many times because children have that connection still. They feel that. They haven't built this armoring that we have around ourselves. As you're waking up, and you are all waking up, this is the important thing to know. Every single one of you is waking up. You have no choice. You really don't. And I don't care how many millions of lifetimes it may take you to wake up. You will, it is guaranteed, wake up and return to oneness. Right? And Tricia, you made the statement that we are all in the ocean of unconditional love. But that's only true when we're unaware we're in the ocean of unconditional love. When we are awake, suddenly there is no ocean because we are the ocean. And you look out and you look at the people around you, even those who are doing things you don't like, all right? And remember, they're part of the ocean too. And all the judgment, all the anger, all the resentment, all the fear starts to just slough off. You don't need it anymore.
So look for the breadcrumbs. Look for the things that make you think beyond your own situation. Things that connect you to Source. Things that connect you to that unconditional love. Look for those little things that help you remember, I am not my body. I am not my story. I am Source. I am God, Goddess. I am
All.
everything.
So thank you all for being here tonight. And may we all go in peace.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.